Square was in trouble. After a series of games that didn't see much commercial success, they needed a release that would reignite their brand and their bank account. And they came up with an idea for an RPG, the aptly named Final Fantasy, as it was supposed to be a one off and their last shot at success, and went on to be one of the longest running and most successful RPG series of all time, solidifying Square's legacy for decades. Final Fantasy I alone sold over 1 million copies and was remade and repackaged over a dozen times because it separated itself from the big RPG at the time, Dragon Quest, by being more like Dungeons and Dragons. In Dragon Quest, you had one character. Final Fantasy gave you a party. Dragon Quest, you played the character you were given, while Final Fantasy had classes. Things like that. So, does Final Fantasy still hold up today? No. Okay, look. Final Fantasy 1 is not a bad game, but if you're used to playing the later games, you have to unlearn a lot of how you think a Final Fantasy game works. You got to remember, these were the initial stumbling steps of the franchise. They still hadn't figured things out yet. But let's start with the magic system. Your mages start out not knowing any magic. Unfortunately, I figured this out in my first battle, but you have to buy magic, which is fine. I've played lots of games where you have to buy magic. So I grinded for some cash, went out into the wilderness, and picked a fight. And that's when I learned the second quirk of how magic works in this game. You don't have MP exactly. You have different levels of spells. There are 4 spells in each level, but you can only equip 3, and each level has its own pool of MP, which towards the beginning of the game makes you have to be really careful about when you use magic. Now, the white mage is still pretty good with a weapon, but the black mage takes a long time to become the glass cannon he eventually turns into. The next issue is death. In future Final Fantasies, when a party member goes toes up, you just drag their lifeless corpse to the nearest inn, have them sleep it off, and they're fine in the morning. So when my black mage went to that big random encounter in the sky, I dragged his lifeless husk to the nearest inn, and the next morning he had the nerve to still be dead. Turns out in this game, there's only 2 ways to revive a party member. Phoenix down, or by visiting a priest that are in most towns who will revive your party member out of the goodness of their own heart and cold hard cash. But there is no priest in the first town, so I had to grind for the 500 gold it cost to pick up a single bird feather. Also, the story of this game is structured in a really awkward way. It's more of a series of fetch quests. You fetch an eye for a witch, a gem for a giant, a bomb for a gnome. It sounds weird out of context. But these events never feel like they're serving the bigger story. It just feels like the game is throwing hurdles in your way to stall for time and lengthen gameplay. By the time you get to the end, it doesn't feel like you played a coherent story. You played a random series of events. But let's talk about that story. If you've ever played a Final Fantasy game, the story is going to feel pretty familiar. The world is run on crystals because it's Final Fantasy, and it is always crystals. The crystals have been corrupted by the Dark Knight Garland and some fiends, so you stroll into town, take down the fiends, uncorrupt the crystals, and face Garland. And this is where the story takes a left turn and into a ditch. It seems Garland and the fiends have created a time loop. Now, time travel isn't something that most Final Fantasy games touch on, and this is an excellent example of why. So the story goes, the fiends sent Garland into the future so that Garland could send the fiends into the past, and they could send him into the future, creating a loop. Your party gets stuck in this loop, and every time you go to face Garland, you die over and over. Now, there are a couple problems with this. The first one being, who cares? The crystals are purified in the present, and the fiends are dead now. Everything is fine. You have no reason to go back into the past at all. Okay, fine. Maybe you have to go back into the past because you're stuck in a loop. Okay. But before you fight Garland in the past, you have to kill all the fiends again. Why doesn't killing the fiends break the loop? If the fiends of the past are dead, they can't send Garland into the future to send them back into the past. I know, because it's a video game. Whatever. Kill Garland, kill the fiends, save the world, go home, good job. Like I said, Final Fantasy 1 isn't a bad game. The story structure isn't great, the mechanics take getting used to, and the story is something you've seen 1,000 times. World is in danger, bunch of nobodies show up, and they complete side quests until the world is saved. But if you can look past all that, there's a fun game here. And if you're a fan of Final Fantasy and you love the nostalgia, it is interesting to see where it all started and this game did spur my favorite game series of all time. But that's what I think. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. Good, bad, whatever. Let me hear it. And while you're down there, if you could hit the like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.